Hey guys, what's up? I'm on the edge of my seat because I'm excited. We have a whole brand new podcast called the Better, Stronger, Faster Podcast, which is, like it sounds, a performance enhancing podcast. I'm going to tell you all the things I've done to A, get sober and stay there for 8 years, B, get back in shape and not be so fat, and C, what you can do to help yourself get out of some of these situations. We have a lot of easy, quick tips. I have a lot of complex, difficult situations to navigate. There is a lot to talk about here, and I figured the best way to kick this off would be with my little brother, the person who's probably taught me the most in life about everything, from being stoic to being strong to being a good family man. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I introduce you to the new Better, Stronger, Faster podcast with our very first guest, Mark Bell.
Flying out of Sacramento, California!
Woo! What you gonna do?
Better, stronger,
Son of a bitch.
faster.
Oh yeah!
Weeks? Sal weeks? Yeah. So this is just starting out cheap. This is the way it's starting.
What is this creamy thing on the seat?
That's a different.
Russell left that.
No, the thing about it is, I was at the bank, savings account. Sandra and I were talking, and told my wife. And that's weird.
One thing led to another.
All right, Russell.
We're going to share a microphone?
This is how cheap it is so far.
This is disgusting.
Yeah,
We're brothers, so
We're
it's
going to
not.
share this phallic symbol?
Yeah. We're brothers, so it doesn't matter.
Why has it got to be that color?
BBC. Well, because you're used to Ensema.
Andrew told me to tell you to get tight on the mic.
Oh,
I would never say that to you. I have too much respect for you.
keep it tight.
Keep
Keep
it
it
tight.
tight.
But Andrew, the producer, said,
Who's Andrew?
He produces.
Sandra,
Sandra?
Andrew.
Cool, man.
Like this?
Hey, so this is
Hey.
our maiden voyage of the Better, Stronger, Faster podcast. It's starting out real cheap, just here in this little room in the gym. And, I have a lot of things that I want to get out there, a lot of information I want to get out to people. And you've been killing it on your podcast, and it's your birthday. First of all,
God.
happy birthday.
Thank you so much. Are we picking up the audio? Is it working? Did you hit the red button?
Beautiful. That little red button down there flashing.
I think we're rolling.
You're all running.
All right.
Yeah, so basically, I think what a lot of people would love to hear from you and us is we've been on a fantastic voyage. It's really been incredible. The voyage we've been on since we were, I think probably since I was like 15, and you were only like 12 when you started. Basically, how did you get into all of this?
All this exercise type stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you own a fitness empire, basically, a gym.
When I was 10, I found an exercise physiology book and just started reading it. And I really liked that a lot. So then I heard about another book called Super Training. I started reading that. Once I got through that, I translated it into German and Russian for other people. The Germans and the Russians used it to great success. They became famous weightlifters, and the Bulgarians. I helped write the programming for the Bulgarian system when I was, I think, about 12.
That's
And I've
three.
been in love with it ever since.
That's 3 times a day that you train, right?
Yeah. I didn't really do anything. I just followed my brothers. I followed you and Mad Dog. Mad Dog was playing football and wrestling and lifting weights for football. And so I just kind of was tagging along with whatever the hell you guys were doing.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because Mike had this interest in like playing football and wanted to like be a pro football player
Right.
and be a professional wrestler, and he had all these big dreams. And I remember like he would go to the YMCA and he would lift with Brian Minholtz, and I saw them squat 500 pounds, and I'm like, I think he was only in like 10th grade or 11th grade. And I'm like, one day I want to do that, but I never really thought that I could. And so I started lifting, and I think I started dragging you along with me. A big reason why was because I felt like, well, I'll never get to their level, so I'll bring Mark, who's a lot smaller, and I'll be able to like lift more than him, but also
Right.
like show him what to do. So it was really like interesting in starting off that like almost right out of the gate, Mad Dog kind of like separated himself from us,
Mhm.
and I think we became training partners like ever since.
Yeah, and I think the thing that attracted me to it is I was good at it. Like I was a little bit better than my friends. They didn't have the same access. Like we had our weights set up in the garage. You went to a chiropractor in the Poughkeepsie area. You went to Dr. Tom Starace, and he was strong, and he squatted like 700 pounds. He'd always walk around in those disgusting like coaching shorts that only coaches can find for some reason.
Yeah,
like
the
those
coach
weird.
shirts.
Yeah, what are those things?
I don't
Like
know.
polyester or something?
You get them out of a secret catalog that nobody
Yeah,
else
it's
has.
disgusting. But he had jacked legs. He was super strong. He squatted like 700.
Well, he
or
squatted
something.
625, but he only weighed like 165 or 181 when he did it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, he was a beast, and we all kind of looked up to him. He ended up coaching at the high school a little bit and stuff later on, but he had a massive impact because he was telling you like the only way for you to be out of pain is for you to be strong, and then you've been on a mission to try to figure out how to be out of pain since that time. I think.
I should say I think the interesting thing about Dr. Tom was that Dr. Tom had a lisp,
Mhm.
and he was our strength coach for our football team, and every single kid on the team would make fun of him,
All right.
and they wouldn't listen to him.
Oh.
And I was the only one that was like, you know what? I don't care if he has a lisp. I don't care about anything. Like this guy's awesome. And he started teaching me how to do squats with a broomstick on my back.
Mhm.
I was 16 years old,
You had knee
and
surgery,
I had
right?
double knee surgery, arthroscopic surgery for bone chips in my knees that they had to remove. And
Your
Dr.
knees were just in a lot of pain, or
I was in a ton of pain when I was young. Yeah. And so I've always had pain issues. I don't know where they come from and where they go, but they exist. So Dr. Tom taught me how to squat with a broomstick on my back.
right?
And it went from a broomstick to 315 pounds in the course of about a year.
Yeah.
And I was a young kid. So, like, again, I was good at it like you were. And I think that just kept progressing everything. The one thing that I find so interesting is I always used to remember when we used to lift, I would go up to like 405
Mhm.
and I would tell people, like, I don't think Mark will ever squat 405. His legs are just too skinny.
Yeah, I had trouble with squats.
And he ended up doing what?
My best squat is 1,080, but as a kid, I didn't really squat much. I didn't squat very often, and Jake is now coming into the gym. My son, he's 17, and he's asking me like, should I be doing squat? I just said, just do what you like. Like it's hard enough. Life is hard enough as it is. There's no reason to make it exponentially harder. So whenever you find a positive habit, don't worry too much about how you're doing that habit until you get good grip on it. So I told him, I was like, if there is some leg stuff that you do enjoy, you should be implementing that so you got some balance. So maybe drag the sled, or he's like, oh, okay, I love dragging the sled. We don't need 17 leg exercises. I'm happy that you're going to the gym, and if going to the gym makes you feel good, that's a great tool to have, and it's a great thing to, be able to jump to anytime you have extra stress or extra anxiety in your life. I think the times that we're in is that people don't have enough weapons in their toolbox. And when I was a kid, I never thought about depression. I never thought about anxiety. Those are things that I've been very fortunate to be able to elude pretty much my entire life. I minus a few small bouts of this or that, like after a bodybuilding show, I had like a day of depression, and I was like, oh, that must be what people are talking about. But I had like a couple hours of it. In terms of anxiety, kind of same thing. Like I don't get anxious about stuff. I don't believe that that's necessarily just because the way I'm wired. I do think that I have tools that I can go to whenever I get fucked up and get in my own head, because everyone gets fucked up on thoughts. I think my job as a parent is to provide options for my children so that they can be in the same boat, where if something's happening, something feels stressful to them in life, Jake can go and play his guitar. And whether he knows it or not, when he comes home from school, always, I have a front row seat every day to listen to him playing his guitar. He might not translate that into like, school sucks, I hate school, I'm going to go jam on the guitar. But that is kind of what's what's happening. And so I hope more people can find more tools, whether it's lifting or setting up a challenge with your nutrition, to help you deal with the anxiety and stress and reinterpretation of everything going on.
Kind of the amazing thing for me with Jake being my nephew is just watching his development over the years. Like he was never like a lot of people that have kids and they own a gym or they go to the gym a lot. Like they bring their kids to the gym all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Their kids are running around the gym all the time. And Jake, when he was very young, he's in Bigger, Stronger, Faster, lifting a kettlebell. And then I don't think I saw him in the gym for like quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you never really like forced it upon him or your daughter Quinn, and you never really pushed it. Is that hard for you to not push it?
No, it was never hard. What I did tell both of them, we had one day where I told them, I said, I'm going to show you guys how to lift. I'm going to show both of you how to lift. This is all that I know. Like, I don't really know much about anything else, but this is something that I feel confident that I know. And the reason why I did that, I was prompted to do that by watching a documentary on the Gracies. And it was like Hoist, it was like the grandpa or whatever. What's his name? Do you remember? Kind of the guy that kicked
Helio, right?
I forget which one, but whichever guy.
Maybe Russell can pull it up, but I think that's it. Helio Gracie.
Yeah, whatever guy kind of kicked everything off in the beginning. He did that with his children. He was like, I don't, in their family it might have been different. Like maybe you had to do jujitsu. I'm not sure, but he just said, "This is what I know. I'm going to show it to you." And I was just thinking, like, yeah, that's what people do. Like if you're a mechanic, you show people how to fix your car, how to fix their car. If you are a carpenter, you show people how to use a hammer and nails. And like these are things that why wouldn't you show your kid if that's a trait that you have that can be useful to them. So with fitness, I'm like, well, most everybody needs some form of fitness because they don't really have a hobby what's his name?
Helio.
There you go. You nailed it. They don't really have a hobby all the time that really burns a lot of calories. And just sit around and watch TV and wait for DoorDash to show up. You don't even have to, go to the door when they show up. You say, leave it at the front or whatever, And so I was like, this is a great tool to be able to teach my kids fitness. And in terms of nutrition, they're going to just kind of see all that play out all the time anyway. So I just thought to myself, I'm going to show both of them how to lift. Neither one of them really cared, but I was like, I'm just going to show you some stuff in the garage. And I showed them how to do overhead presses, bent over rows, deadlifts, all with dumbbells. A bunch of other exercises, some single arm stuff, some body weight stuff. Like here's, squat onto a bench, basic movements and just small explanations. It maybe took 15 minutes. Neither one of them were real negative. Neither one of them was real positive. They were just kind of listening through it. We never really talked about it much. Jake came into the gym probably maybe 6 months later. And that's when he has some of those epic videos of him like lifting in his jeans in the gym when he was doing some deadlifts and stuff. And he liked it back then a little bit, but I don't think he understood what any of it was. Then one of his buddies was lifting for football. And so he was just like, this is cool socially. I'll just hang out with my friend and we'll lift. And so they would lift together a little bit here and there. And then I think he started lifting enough to where he's like, well, if I'm going to do this and like I'm getting pretty sore, like I want to get the benefit of it. Because in the beginning, he would lift like maybe like on a Monday and then he'd get on a Tuesday. Then he would be out for 2 weeks. And he'd lift again for like 2-3 days and then he'd be out, But now he's just like, I'd rather see the results. So when I see him at home or something, I'm going to the gym tomorrow. I'll see you at the gym after school or whatever.
It's kind of weird.
I run into him all the time now.
It's kind of weird, right? Like whenever he comes in, I'm like, hey, like, like what are you doing here, kind of thing. But it's great to have him in the gym and have him be part of it. And he has like several friends. He's got like I think 4 or 5.
He's got a whole crew.
Yeah, he's got a whole crew, and I think that that's great for all those kids. And one of them has great form on everything. I think his dad,
Matthew,
Matthew, he's got amazing form on everything. I think it's because like his dad taught him. But I think you're onto something because like if like our dad never really taught us like he never like forced us into doing anything, and we would find things on our own, and I don't think parents need to worry so much about finding out what their like forcing their kid. People are like, I'm going to put my kid in jujitsu, I'm going to do this, it's like, let the kid dictate, right? Is what your message was, and I think that it's worked out really well.
I think just exposure and just leading by example. I remember there's been instances in the house where there's like fighting, the kids are fighting or yelling, or like kind of stop them and say, do I respond to you that way? Like, does mom respond to you that way? And they're like, no. It's like, okay, well, we have an option. We don't have to do that in this house. I said, leave that to maybe other people. Maybe other people want to act that way. But in this house, let's not really slam doors, and maybe we will get upset with each other. Maybe we'll get mad. Maybe we'll be sad. Like, that is part of all living together and trying to get along. But I said, look at this house. It's a beautiful house. We have a pool. Like, this house, like this, let's have this place mainly be for fun. Let's have a fucking good time, have a good time here, basically. And I had a few conversations with them like that, and never really had to have another one. I'm fortunate in the fact that they get along, but I think they get along is because I promoted it to be that way. I, there's like small stuff with like a boy and a girl. You're just like, you don't want your son, I had to teach him when he was young, like, you're not proving anything to anybody. You're not tough by like pushing your sister down the ground, making her cry.
Yeah.
She is a little girl. She doesn't have the strength. She's not your age even. And, so I was just little stuff like that. Like, hey, that's just not appropriate. It's not fair. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And you just told me that you guys got back from Hawaii and you said, the kids had a blast. They get along so well. It's kind of weird to have like a brother and a sister that are just so
they love each other,
friendly with each other, which is cool.
They love and look forward to the same thing I look forward to every day, and that's going home to them, enjoying dinner.
What's up, Russell?
What's the split? How old? What's the age gap?
Jake is 17. He's gonna be 18 next month, and Quinn is 14. So about a 4-year difference, and I do understand. Like, I'm not trying to say that like I think that every household needs to be the same or that it should be the same. It certainly shouldn't. Like, we had good battles in our house, and like we would wrestle, and then the wrestling, would be fun, but then like somebody, meaning me, would pretty much always end up crying. I was just talking on the podcast a couple of days ago. I was like, I cried pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
Not out of like real pain. It just because I was a baby, and
well, you were 4 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And so the thing was, for me, the only way I could prove, like, the only person I could beat would be you in anything. So it's like we would have these tag team matches. Remember we had tag team matches in the basement with
and our dog was my tag team partner.
Yeah, Queenie was our dog, and Queenie was a miniature collie. She was named that when we got her, so just don't take that out on us. But yeah, Queenie was a miniature collie, and she would tag team with Mad Dog usually, right? But then also I had
that's right.
I had my friend Anthony Pepe. And Anthony Pepe used to tag. Remember, he used to tag out, and he would tag.
We had the craziest battles. Like, how is that possible? I mean, imagine you're driving down the street nowadays, and you see like these kids like doing these like tag team wrestling matches. Like, we would just be like killing each other.
We'd jump off the couch and like literally drop a real elbow.
But we sometimes do it in the yard. Like, a lot of times we'd be like outside.
Do you remember? You probably don't remember because I probably messed you up for good. But do you remember I gave you a DDT and I meant to do? Well, I meant to do a DDT onto a pillow, but
there was no pillow.
Our basement was just concrete with a rug over it, basically, like carpet.
I remember the thud of my head.
And I'm like, okay, here we go, dropping DDT, boom, right on the pillow. Whoops.
Yeah.
And I, that was. But that could have been what sparked the invention of the slingshot right there.
Knocking me silly, knocking me sideways.
Yeah. But those were fun times. And then Anthony Pepe used to tag out and used to run into the bathroom and lock the bathroom door so that Mad Dog couldn't get to him, because Mad Dog would he literally would like beat us up pretty bad, in those matches, and we were.
Yeah,
Away.
that's what it all turned into. It all just turned into like mayhem. I think with some of that mayhem, I think comes like a lot of creativity, and I think that we were left to do a lot of our own stuff when we went to Grandpa's house. There was like 9 million kids running around. Some kids playing wiffle ball, some people playing basketball. There's always somebody doing something extremely dangerous with like a rake or an axe or something. You're like, somebody's gonna die. But if you got upset, you'd go inside and you'd cry, and no one would listen to you.
Yeah.
That was the best thing. Because they like I remember like maybe Uncle Peter or something like that taking me to the window, and he's like, everyone's outside having fun. He's like, you're in here crying.
Yeah.
He's like, you can stay in here and have a fit if you want, and you can sit on my lap, and we can sit by the fireplace, and you can cry as much as you want. He's like, or would you rather go out there and play football with your family?
Yeah.
Like, but I'm so sad.
It's just crazy. Self-pity does nobody any good, right?
Yeah, that's what it showed me.
People always talk about like gratitude and being grateful and everything, and I just don't think you could have I think I didn't even see it until I did Bigger, Stronger, Faster. But when I did Bigger, Stronger, Faster, and I was talking to other people, I'd be like, yeah, there's 9 kids on my dad's side, and they all have kids, and we're like best friends with all our cousins. And people are like, what? And I go, yeah, on my mom's side, there's like 7 kids, and they all have kids. And like, so we come from like this giant family, and we talk about like gratitude and being grateful. Like, I think that's the one thing that we have and we were born with that maybe a lot of other people don't have. And I feel terrible when I hear people like, oh, I don't have a good relationship with my brother. Like, that makes me really sad to hear.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, my brother's like, I can't even think of anybody that I'm better friends with than you. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's not really, and for you, it's probably kind of the same thing besides like Andy, besides your wife.
Yeah, not everybody, starts off on the track in the same spot, but you might have been behind on the track because you had degenerative stuff with your knees and your hips. I might have been set off in a different spot because of having trouble learning in school. And Mike might have been set off in a different spot on the track because he had some mental health issues and a propensity for drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And there's other people that might be behind simply because they were born a different color, a different race, or they're in a different religion that other people don't vibe with, that other people don't like. There's could be socio-economical type stuff that somebody is behind. But in the end, I mean, ultimately, you're trying to be a functioning part of society. You can't avoid it. You have to be like communal in some way. You have, the worst thing that can be done to a human being is for a human being to be neglected. Like, there's nothing worse than isolation. Out of all the different stuff that you can do to somebody, that's probably the worst. Like, they put you in solitary confinement. It's the worst thing we can think of, or like punishment for somebody that's like in prison or whatever. And so we need each other. And so once you start to kind of think of that, you better be friends with somebody, and you better figure out, how can you be a part of society? How can you be a positive part of the environment that you're around, even if you are in an environment that is shitty? Like my friend that I had on my podcast the other day, Sean Stevenson, who was born in St. Louis, one of the murder capital of the world. You've seen people get shot, seen all kinds of horrific stuff. He was raised by his grandmother and his mother, and when he lived with his grandma, he saw like life can be really good and life can be what you make of it. And he saw when he lived with his mom, it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
And so he recognized at a young age, luckily he had his grandmother, otherwise he would never have been taught, those tools. But hopefully, it appears to me that most people in the United States, a large percentage of people in the United States, have Wi-Fi. They live in a room that is controlled by, has temperature control. They drive in a car that's temperature controlled. They go to a grocery store. Like I shouldn't say all, many of us have many of the same luxuries. So if you have those things and you're sitting there thinking about like gratitude all the time, I don't think it really serves you that well to sit there and ponder like that you're happy or sad about any of those things, or that you're even grateful. I don't think it really matters. I think you need to go and do stuff. Like if you don't do things, then if you're not doing something, you can't be something. You have to do something, and not necessarily for other people. But if you do something and you're something in other people's eyes, that certainly helps, because for whatever reason, like that is just part of the game, that you are somebody to other people. The interesting thing about that, once you kind of work your way through that, is that just because I have a business and have done well with this business doesn't mean that I'm loved by my wife more so than somebody else listening to this that's also married. It doesn't do that for you. So while it does help, the main thing is not so much that you did something that made you look like something in somebody else's eyes. It's that you did something and it helped propel you forward and helped you make yourself feel better about yourself. Because as you're pointing out, like gratitude and affirmations, those things aren't enough. And you can't have affirmations. You can't say that you're good, and you can't say that you can't just spit this positive stuff out about yourself unless you're really doing something positive, I think.
Yeah, you have to actually be good at some, like, the thing is, like, I also believe that everybody has the ability to be good at something, right? Like, and it's like, find out what that is and pursue it. I had a kid the other day hit me up on Instagram, and I had to call him on the phone because he was suicidal. And I'm like, what do you like? What are you good at? You know, and he just kept like digging. Like he kept like asking me all these questions about like how he can be happy. And I'm like, what do you like? And he's like, well, I like you and Mark and what you do. Where do you work out? And he said 24-hour fitness. I said, go in there and cancel your membership, because that's not going to get you to where Mark and I are. You need to find a powerlifting gym where you live. You need to walk every day. You need to get on a diet. You need to do all these things. And now he's starting to do those things. But I feel like when people are lost and they don't know where to turn or where to go, and they're like, I want to be like Mark Bell. Well, you got to do the things that Mark Bell does every day. You know, you don't have to do it to that extreme. You don't have to be able to squat 1,000 pounds, but you have to do the same habits that he does. You can't be somebody without doing something. It's kind of what you're saying. You got to do something to earn it.
It's my belief that we all have like divinity, like each person. It's kind of my belief that everything is like God-like, like that humans, animals. I mean, you look at the stuff that animals can, like, you ever just like totally baffled at the stuff that animals can do? I hear Joe Rogan talking about it all the time. And you think about some of the things that humans can do. And you think about some of the smartest people in the world. Rogan had someone on recently, the guy that was talking about the subconscious mind. Ultimately, the guy's been studying it for like 30 years. He's extremely intelligent. Like the words that are coming out of this guy's mouth, you got to look a lot of them up. Just guy's on a different level. But when it came to understanding the human body, he knew nothing about it. And that's anyone that studies the human body long enough will recognize we know zero about it. It is the most complex, it is the most advanced thing in the history of the world. And it's like beyond our capacity for really truly understanding it. There's like weird shit that happens, and people are kind of like deniers of these things that happen because they want to just try to stick to the science all the time.
Yeah.
But there's like these surgeries that happen on people's, that's one study. I don't know if there's multiple studies, but there's a study where they did these fake surgeries, these phantom surgeries. They didn't even do a surgery. They just cut the person
Sham
open.
surgery, yeah, they call it.
Yeah, and the person's meniscus grew back without them touching anything. Like, what in the fuck is that?
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer that each person has like a divine something in them. And sometimes people are like, I'm not good at anything. It's like, well, what things are you thinking about? Like maybe you're recently talking with Chris Henshaw, who trains people for like endurance.
CrossFit guy, yeah.
CrossFit guy, yeah. He was mentioning, he said, when I was young, I wasn't good at anything. And I said, can we talk about that a little bit more? Like, what does that mean? And he's like, oh, I just, wasn't good at like football, basketball, baseball. Well,
That's three
who the
things.
fuck cares about those sports? Like, plus those are just in one category. Those are specific sports, and they're just one category of sports. There's so many other sports. There's like gymnastics, there's running, there's cross country, there's so many other things, and maybe sports are never your thing. Who the hell cares? It doesn't really matter much. And I think that a lot of times people think when you say to somebody, you got to find your passion, they're like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know what I'm good at. Sometimes somebody's just really good at talking to people. Like sometimes somebody's good at just being kind. Like, wow, because they've been that way forever, because they've always been that way. Maybe no one's ever pointed it out. Maybe they don't have positive people around them. But that is a fucking awesome trait. Like if you are a person that is, quote unquote, attractive enough, not in your looks, but you have an attractive enough. What about the person that you see that just lights you up? Like every time Jeremy Avila, I always use him as an example.
Russell, buddy.
Our boy Russell.
My producer. Every time I see him, like, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, he came in the gym today. We're both fired up.
You smile when you see him.
And it's like, that is a divine energy. Like, why are we getting energy from Russell? He didn't do anything. He just walked through the door. But it's just him
smiling all the time.
It's just him being him. It's just him. And we all have a lot of talent in us. It's just a matter of kind of finding that. And then the hard part is like, you got to do a lot of work on bring that stuff out. I mean, I don't know all of Russell's story, but I know a good amount of it. And it's like, this fucking guy was in the military. Like, he's not some dude that just popped in here out of nowhere. He was like-minded enough to pop through the doors of Super Training Gym at some point.
Yeah. And I think the number one thing that you've taught me that's like, I just want everybody to sort of get into the same mindset, right? Like, you've taught me so much. I think I even bought you the book originally, like The Daily Stoic, right? But you've always had this stoic mentality. And so I'm like, oh, Mark is kind of like this. I think he'll like this book by Ryan Holiday, a couple, like 5-6 years ago. And whenever I get so pumped, like I'll find a new product, I'll be like, Smelly, hey, check, and then you're like, yeah, okay, get back to me in 6 months and see if you're still taking it.
Right.
See if you're still doing this. Like, oh, hey, I found this new workout. Yeah, see me in 6 months. Just tell me if you're still doing it. And I tend to get super excited about stuff, and then I actually try it, and it doesn't live up to the hype. Where do you like get that from? Like, where'd that come from originally?
It's a matter of like elimination, eliminating things that I just found that aren't helpful. Like that small example of me crying when I was a kid. It wasn't bringing me happiness. I thought I'm going to, you're the little kid, so you're not actually thinking this way, but I'm thinking like, I'm going to go inside because somebody kicked the ball away from me and I'm sad or mad or whatever it is. And you're so upset as a kid, you can't even talk. You're doing that whole thing. You can't even get the words out and just snot and everything's all over your face. And no one knows the hell happened or what's going on. And no one gives a fuck, right? I just kind of learned, I think, at a young age that just wasn't really helpful. Our parents and our family, not like they're hard asses. Like our mom was super loving and she'll kiss your boo-boos and hold on to you and make you hot chocolate. And our grandma was like, making you peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or doing whatever the hell you wanted at any time of day, getting you ice cream or making you grilled cheese sandwich or, and so we did get like some result sometime of like having a little bit of pity, but our family was kind of just that way all the time. It wasn't because you were crying, and so I just recognized at a young age that like, that's just not that useful. And then as I got older, being in powerlifting and trying to gravitate towards becoming one of the stronger lifters, it's like, I remember doing some workouts, and one workout in particular probably took like 3 or 4 hours. And I remember getting done with it, and I was like, man, like, I don't know, like, just that took a lot, but I was like, it was productive. It worked. And then I thought back to when I was a kid and how long my homework took sometimes just because I would struggle with school. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't really matter how long. No one cares how long it. No one cares how long it took you guys to set up a podcast. Everyone has a podcast, so it's just taken for granted that you hit a couple buttons on the computer and you
It's all set up.
Yeah, you have a podcast.
But they didn't see it. We're in here for 2 weeks trying to figure it out. Trying to make everything work. How does this work? How's that work?
Well, people think they want to be like Elon Musk. And it's like Elon Musk was beaten like most of his young life. He's a victim of child abuse. You want to trade shoes with him? You want to get your ass kicked by your dad every day, or like whatever the horrific shit is that he went through, or any of these people? It's like you don't, or Vince McMahon. There's like a lot of people that have that background. Carl Lenore, a good friend of ours, he told me one time that his dad told him that if you were to, Carl lived on like a block in New York City, and he said if we took everybody from the neighborhood and we put all their problems out in the middle of the street, because you would come back to this front step right here with the same problem that you have, because you'd look at everybody else's problem and say, I want nothing to do with that shit.
Yeah.
My problem doesn't sound that bad compared to everything else that's going on. And so I just recognize, like, we all have problems. We all have issues, and it doesn't really do you much good to complain about them. You have to do something about them. That's the direction that I try to go in as much as I can. And just like many other people, I certainly do a lot of avoidance of like things that I'm not good at. Like stretching would be something like man, I should have addressed that 20 years ago, and for whatever reason I don't. Who the hell knows? There's tons of things that I avoid, but all you'll see me talk about is the stuff that I'm good at, because that's how you promote yourself. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, but whatever the actual real problem is, if it's really troublesome, then you got to figure stuff out to do for it. No one else is going to figure it out for you unless you are strong enough to admit and bold enough and brave enough to come forward and say, I have a legitimate issue. Like, I'm not even messing around. I have a real problem, and I would like to know if you have any idea of where I could go, or if you would help me. I need help. That's the only way. And in that case, somebody's going to lead you to something, but then you still have to do the work.
Well, I have one last question for you, because Russell has to leave early today. So this is our maiden voyage. So we'll make this one short, but I'm sure we'll have you on this podcast a million times. Or this might even morph into something that we do together a lot, because it seems like there's a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah,
so,
Russell is not having it, though.
What I wanted to ask you, though, is that you don't seem to care. There's a lot of stuff that, like, so you invented the slingshot, and then you invented the hip circle. And the hip circle is known by like 100 different names now, booty bands, or, somebody will name it after themselves and whatever. But like, you literally invented the first kind of cloth, stretchy hip circle, right? And like, I get mad about it, but you never see, like, you're so confident in yourself. Like, it's so cool to see. And I guess maybe I have this with the movies I've done. Like, it makes me not care about, other people's movies. Like, but like, I don't get mad or jealous or whatever, but like, you never seem to worry about like anything with your business. Like, I'll say to you, like, hey man, you came out with that new mammoth band. That thing's awesome. Or you came out with the stretchy straps. How they selling? And you literally tell me, I don't know, I'm on to the next thing. And it's like, how? Like, that's what I think, it's like a lot of people want to know, is like, how does your mind work that you don't care and you can move on, and you don't get mad that somebody, like you said, well, I couldn't patent the hip circle because they said there wasn't enough to it. So everybody just took my idea and ran with it. Even Nike makes one now, right? How do you not worry about that stuff?
Because worry's not useful. Pretty simple. I heard somebody more recently say there's 2 days of the week that you should never worry about: yesterday and tomorrow. But I also think that you shouldn't really be worried about today either. The only choice you have is to live in. Things can get really weird, but the only choice you have is to like live in now, in the now, right? That people say. The weird thing about the now is it's already gone. Like, it already just happened.
Yeah.
Like, we're continuing to make like new history, if you will. And we can't. you only have control over one thing. I guess this is my overarching theme of everything. My PhD thesis statement, I guess, is that you only have control over one thing, and that's just your thinking. You don't have control over anything else. You have control over the way that you interpret stuff. If I came in here today and I said, Russell, you did a great job with your workout, and it's the three of us, how do you interpret that? You know, are you like, that's odd, I worked out with Mark.
Yeah, I must have done really
Shit,
bad.
man, maybe I didn't do it. I didn't do a good workout.
But maybe you're telling Russell because he needs more encouragement.
Maybe I'm telling
I've done
Russell
it a million
because
times.
maybe it's because I'm telling Russell because I actually just noticed on that particular day that he did a good job, and I just wasn't thinking of you because we train together all the time.
Yeah.
We see each other all the time. You know, being on a podcast with Nsima, he's a really good-looking guy. If somebody says something about him being a good-looking guy, that doesn't have me sitting there up at night.
What does that mean about Andrew then?
Yeah, well, or yeah.
Or how does Andrew interpret that if you say that?
Yeah, or me. Like, am I sitting up at night going, I wonder that much, or I wonder if she like is kind of like, this guy's kind of ugly. Like, I need to like, you know.
She probably is, but
no, she probably has played that out in her 1,000. I just think that even if there was any truth to any of that, it doesn't do you any good to have that insecurity and to carry that baggage around. I think, you know, ultimately what I'm trying to do is I have some light shed on me for whatever reason, and I'm trying to just like be a mirror and just like reflect that light onto other people that I think are cool and are awesome and that have good messages. And if I can do that in any way, and because maybe it's not what I say, that's part of the reason why I have the podcast in the first place. People will say, oh, it's easy for you to say, you're a middle-aged white dude, or you came from a, you know, good, healthy upbringing, you were upper middle class, and all those things are true. The resistances I've had in life have been not that much. I don't feel like they've been anything. Like I literally have not, I don't even feel like that much. Well, it's because of where I am in my life, but I don't feel like anything bad has even really ever happened to me. Knock on some wood.
I think that that's a really interesting thing to take away is like whether it's good or bad, you shouldn't really be carrying any of this baggage along with you. Like, don't carry baggage thinking that you're cool. Don't carry baggage thinking that you're bad or like did something wrong or guilty or whatever.
I really like the word equanimity a lot. Like just trying to figure out a way to have what would be
put that on the screen, Russell.
That's a great word.
What would be considered to have an even mind, despite the fact that the information that's coming inward would otherwise move somebody else off the needle of how they feel. Just because there's like a certain input does not result in the output. It doesn't have to work that way. You know, our bodies don't work the same as like a vending machine. You stick $1 in there and 4 quarters come out. You know, what you put into it isn't always what you have to get out of it. It doesn't have to be such a negative interpretation. Sometimes you see people, they're so happy about everything sometimes, even when something negative does come their way, they just look at it a totally different way. You're like, oh my God, how did they do that? Well, they chose to. It's amazing how much of a choice things are, and we don't really think about it that much. But why is it that they get in their car in the morning and a country western song comes on and they couldn't be happier? They're fired up. They're like, this is my favorite song. They're singing it. They put the windows down. They want everybody else to hear about it. They're having an amazing time. Meanwhile, somebody else gets in and they fucking hate it. You know, these are things that you somewhere along the lines you picked up and you associated with. They resonate with you, so you like them. But these are all, and it's all a choice. And you can change the station too. You don't have to sit there and be mad that song came on. You can say, I'm going to change the station. And then maybe there's a song that you listen to that makes you sad. And maybe you're kind of already a little funky that day. Maybe you're already a little down in the dumps. Sometimes it feels good to kind of sit in that and be in there. But what about the tool set to be like, oh, I'm going to listen to a comedy podcast. You know, my wife, she watches like junk TV all the time. She's watching like she loves watching comedies.
She watches every show also.
Yeah,
she knows every show.
She watches every show. But my son too, like thinking about him, like he wants to listen to stuff that's funny. And it's like that's a cool trait because people are always asking the question of how do I find happiness? Well, change the channel. Like there's a lot of options. Like you don't have to watch something that's so dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, and those can be entertaining, but you don't have to watch like everything you watch doesn't have to be so associated. All these kind of like crazy feelings that you might be struggling with.
The other thing I wanted to ask you quick before we get out of here is you have this awesome knack for like even on a podcast, I never hear like a Slingshot ad on your podcast. Mm-hmm. I never hear you really trying to sell somebody a Slingshot, yet it's just cranking. It just goes, right? Like, and a lot of other entrepreneurs, I think, make the mistake of like constantly like just pushing their product. And I think that even if somebody took it like a look from the outside, they would come in here. Like if you say you hired a new CEO, I think they'd come right in, Mark, you got to be pushing your product. You got to be selling. You got to be selling. Like, how have you developed this great like business sense by like giving out information and then people just buy your stuff? It's kind of wild.
Can't make anybody do anything, and I certainly don't want to make people do stuff that they're not going to enjoy. I believe that the root of a lot of things, the root of a lot of success comes down to enjoyment and fulfillment. And you can't do a workout for somebody. You can't make somebody eat healthy. But if you can continuously put it forward that this is probably a good idea for you, it seems to be like a pretty damn good idea for a lot of other people. Now that person might be like, man, I'm just kind of missing out on something that does look kind of cool and does look kind of fun. I should get involved in it.
This is why I think if anybody spends any time observing you, because you're too close to the light, right? I have a little bit more of a distance. Mm-hmm. You have incredible ability. I think you earn people's trust because you seem to live this life. There's no fake in anything I've ever seen you do.
Thank you.
From the beginning to the end, there is no fake. And I remember my first exposure to you. Who is this guy with Chris on the Rogan? What's he doing with Chris on the Rogan? Right? And then I go, wow, look at him telling the truth about powerlifting and bodybuilding. Wow, look at him saying the way it really is. Like, oh wow, this guy has no bullshit in it. And you live life gas on with love and intent and compassion, but focus. And you've earned. There's very few men in this world I've admired, Mark. I trust you and I admire you, and I think I speak for the common man that views you in that way. You have my trust implicitly, and I think that's probably it's not fake, it's not bullshit.
Yeah, talk about like being real and and like real things. It's like I said it makes me sad when people don't have good relationships with their family. The reason that we were first on Joe Rogan's podcast was simply because he loved Bigger, Stronger, Faster. And I got contacted out of the blue from, I think it wasn't Jamie. It's like somebody that does the book, this guy, Matt, that does the booking for him. He's like, hey, Joe Rogan would love to have you on his podcast. And my very first question is like, can I bring my brother?
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? And they got back to me and they're like, hell yeah, bring your brother. That would be awesome. But like, that's the first, like, that's how we are. That's how we were like brought up. It's like, let's, be real. Like that, like I actually, the reason I asked to bring my brother probably was because I was nervous, like, hey, can I bring my brother on there to cover? Like, yeah, he's really funny and stuff. Like, and he's got my back, but I really also think that it goes to what you said of like being authentic, just being like,
absolutely. Like,
hey man, well, my brother was in this movie too. And I think he should be on the podcast as well. And Mad Dog wasn't around anymore. So, but I probably would have asked if they both could come on because I feel like we did the movie. Like I always say it, we did the movie together. It took Mark, really interesting. Now everybody's talking about being transparent, but Mark and Mike, Mad Dog, were the first people to ever that I know of that ever went on camera and was like, yeah, I took steroids and this is what I did and this is how I did it. And, you know, in front of, but not in front of the YouTube world, not in front of like people that are popular on YouTube or popular on podcasts, in front of the Sundance Film Festival,
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah, the movie's seen nationwide in the
well,
movie theaters.
seen worldwide.
Yeah.
Also, you know, it got distributed in, you know, 150 countries, different languages, all that. So, and to me, that's the coolest thing in the world, like that you are able to do something like that. And Mark said something great that hit upon it. The only reason that movie ever got made was from the same thing he said before, like trying to do something. Like we were always doing something. So then when it came to the point where like, hey, I want to make this movie about my brothers and I, well, we had lived a full life of lifting and training and, you know, taking steroids and supplements and trying everything under the sun. But I think it just made sense to make a movie, you know?
Yeah, we're just what I like to call kind of suffering for the unknown. You're doing these tasks, you're doing these things every day. And it's not really suffering because it's something that we, again, going back to what I said earlier, it's something that we enjoyed. And I don't want to try to push products on people. I love the Slingshot. I love the products that we have. I love Mind Bullet. Took a bunch before my workout today. But if I can mention it in passing, or if someone says, hey, my shoulder hurts or this or that, then I might be able to point them to a product. But I also don't feel like I need to talk about it all day. Like if I'm really successful and things are going really well, then I probably don't need to talk about it that much. One of my favorite lines in, I just lost the movie in my head. The famous war movie where the drill sergeant's screaming at everybody.
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
Jinx, buy me a Coke. Diet Coke.
A Coke Zero. In Full Metal Jacket, he has some sort of reference back and forth with the soldier, and he tells him that his dad served, and he's like, "Did he ever talk about being a soldier?" And he's like, "Sir, no, sir." He's like, "That means he was a damn good soldier." And that's kind of the way I view a lot of things.
Wow.
Like I shouldn't have to talk about my powerlifting career.
Go right back to the
For people to
Gracies.
go look it up,
Go right back to the Gracies. Like the people that are really good at jiu-jitsu will never tell you that they're good at jiu-jitsu or a
Right.
black belt or whatever. They'll just choke you when you mess with them. But we have to get out of here because Russell's got to go
Don't go blaming it on
tend to the
Russell.
kids or do something.
It's true.
But we will
How many kids you got, Russell?
Two that I know of.
Oh, okay.
we will have you back on in the future
All right.
if you're good.
Thank you so much.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mark.
Love you, brother.
45 years old.
We love you, dude.
We love you.
I love both you guys too. And,
Ka-ching!
and kapoosh.
Later.
Bye.
Good stuff. That's great.